My ex cheated on me with my own brother, then lied about me trying to seduce her. Years later, her drug overdose almost killed their baby. My brother had to learn the hard way. He insulted me and refused to believe me when I told him his beloved wife was a cheater. It really does hurt when it's your own blood. How was I so sure she was cheating? Because she had cheated on me. And believe me, her cheating stories were so outrageous, they're hard to even imagine. I guess I'll have to tell you everything from the beginning. Tasha, 32, was my ex-girlfriend, now my brother's wife. Or I guess I should say ex-wife now. She cheated on me with my own brother. At the time, I warned him she was a cheater and begged him not to marry her. But Tasha clearly had her eyes on his money and nothing else. He didn't listen, and I skipped the wedding, which created a rift between us. Now, years later, he wants to patch things up because Tasha is pregnant. My mom asked me to give them a chance, so I agreed. But guess what? Tasha was still cheating, right? Up until she gave birth. The baby looked nothing like my brother, so he finally opened his eyes and took a paternity test. Let me explain how it all began. I was incredibly naive when I was dating Tasha. I just wanted a hot girlfriend to show off. I was kind of a loser in high school, so having a beautiful woman by my side made me feel validated. I even bought an expensive car just to impress her. But Tasha was extremely paranoid. All throughout the relationship, she kept checking my phone, constantly calling to see where I was, and even forbade me from talking to other women. I tried to make her feel secure, so I introduced her to my close friends and family. But as soon as my friend's friend met her, they warned me she was bad news and that I should stay away. I was blind and foolish. I thought they were just jealous. I didn't want to ruin my friendships, so I kept defending her. Eventually, I introduced her to my parents and my only brother, Aku, who's 3 years older than me, now 35. Noah has always acted a bit childish, but I thought bringing her into the family circle might help, so I invited Tasha on a family weekend trip. My mom, 67, and dad, 69, came too. I thought it would be the perfect chance to bond and enjoy some beach time together. Boy, was I wrong. Tasha got angry because she believed I was staring at another girl in a bikini. For the record, I wasn't. She slapped me and stormed off. I was too angry to follow her at first, but after a while, I started to worry. Searched everywhere but couldn't find her. My parents had gone into town for shopping, so I returned to the beach house thinking she might have gone back. To my horror, I walked in and found Tasha and Noah half naked on the couch, doing things I'll never be able to unsee. I completely lost it. Tasha had the nerve to blame me, saying it was all my fault and that it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't looked at other women. I never looked at anyone else, but I guess people like her assume everyone cheats because that's what they say. Noah gave me some nonsense about how he didn't think Tasha was right for me and that they'd be happier together. I was beyond furious. I walked out and tried to move on, but I couldn't shake it off. After doing a little digging, I found out that Tasha had been flirting with multiple guys while we were together. She'd go on expensive dates with them and let them buy her gifts. I guess I was just another one of her toys. I tried to warn Noah again, but he didn't want to hear it. At that point, I gave up. I was still enraged, not just because my girlfriend had cheated, but because she had done it with my own brother. I knew she'd cheat on him eventually too, and when she did, he'd finally understand the pain I went through. But things didn't go the way I expected. A few months later, I got an invitation to their wedding. I was shocked. My brother was marrying a woman he barely knew, someone who was clearly a gold digger, a liar, and a cheat. I knew if I didn't do something, it would come back to hurt him badly. I wanted to protect him, even if he didn't want it, broken and betrayed. I decided to gather every bit of evidence I had to expose Tasha's long-standing habit of cheating. I showed everything to my brother. His response: He told me Tasha had already come clean to him. According to her, she had just been experimenting with different men until she found the perfect one. She told Noah he was the one, and that's why she chose to marry him. To me, it sounded like pure manipulation, but Noah was blinded by love and fell for every word. Noah's always been a big spender, and luckily, it hasn't really affected us. We're financially comfortable, he earns a solid income, and our parents back him up when needed. We don't even pay rent since we live in apartments owned by our dad, who has made smart investments in real estate. We have a generous stream of rental income. Life's been pretty good for all of us, and I'm sure that lifestyle is exactly what attracted Tasha. She made Noah throw a massive, flashy wedding. A big chunk of my dad's money went into it. What made it even more outrageous was that she invited several of her former flings. Nearly a quarter of the guests had apparently slept with her. The rest were her bizarre friends and some of our family members. Needless to say, the wedding was a disaster from our side. My mom only tolerated it because she wanted Noah to be happy. But my dad, he couldn't stand Tasha and was completely against the marriage. Even her own family didn't show up. They disowned her for some unknown reason. I was invited to the wedding, but I didn't attend. I refused to be part of a circus where my cheating ex was marrying my own brother. Noah called me, pleading for me to come, but I turned him down flat. I told him straight I wouldn't show up to my ex-girlfriend's wedding. He called me jealous and claimed I couldn't handle his happiness. That was the last conversation we had for 5 long years. Just recently, my mom reached out, saying Noah wanted to reconnect. I told her that if he really meant it, he should call me himself instead of hiding behind her. She said she'd ask him to call and begged me to give him a chance. I hesitated, but eventually agreed to try. A few days later, Noah finally called. He told me Tasha was pregnant, that it had been 5 years and they were still going strong. He used the call to rub it in, trying to prove I was wrong about her. He said she'd been a loyal wife and asked me to bury the past so we could reconcile and celebrate the baby together. So, I went to visit them. They seemed like any normal, happy family. Noah made a few jabs at me for still being single and pushed me to at least find a girlfriend. He even thanked me for introducing him to Tasha, saying I was the reason he had such a happy family. The whole thing annoyed me beyond words. I was determined to prove that the facade wouldn't last. To my surprise, their relationship had lasted longer than I expected, but I started digging again. Sure enough, I uncovered a lot. Tasha had been cheating on Noah for years. She'd been meeting other men in hotels, and I had all the receipts, text messages, photos, dates. One guy, John 40, had a particularly messy history with her. He provided me with screenshots of her texting other men while she was still involved with him. John had no idea she was married. He said she used him for dinners and shopping while Noah was away. Thanks to him, I now had a mountain of proof. One day, Tasha called me, claiming it was an emergency. She was home alone and pregnant, and I didn't want to leave her unattended, so I went to their house. She told me Noah was at work and then confronted me. She said she knew I'd been asking around about her. Then, unbelievably, she offered to sleep with me, to keep me quiet. She invited me to the bedroom. I refused and left immediately. But what she did next shocked me even more. She lied to Noah. She told him I had asked her to sleep with me and that I had threatened to expose her if she didn't. I couldn't believe the audacity. I tried to explain to Noah what really happened, that she was the one who initiated everything, and tried to bribe me with sex to keep silent about her affairs. But Noah wouldn't hear any of it. He refused to believe me. I handed him every bit of evidence I had proving she'd been cheating: texts, hotel bookings, photos, all of it. He was furious, but not at her. He was furious at me. He shut me down and refused to listen. I even tried going through my mom and dad, hoping they could help me convince Noah about Tasha's cheating, but he refused to listen. Instead, he grew even more defensive, accusing me of trying to turn the whole family against her. By this point, both my parents knew all about Tasha's actions. My mom was devastated. She didn't want her son trapped in a toxic marriage, especially with a baby on the way. My dad, on the other hand, thought Noah was being foolish for staying with someone so openly unfaithful. I'd always known Noah could be naive, but now he was just being outright stupid. My mom tried talking to him, trying to make him see that Tasha wasn't good for him. But Noah dismissed her entirely, saying I had brainwashed her with fake evidence. He got so upset that my mom eventually gave in just to keep Pasand pretended to believe that Tasha wasn't cheating. After that, I decided to keep my distance from Noah and Tasha. There was no point in helping someone who didn't want to see the truth. He was furious with me anyway for supposedly seducing his wife, a lie I could never forgive. A couple of months passed, and I got a call from Noah. Tasha was going into labor. Mom and Dad were out of state, and their flight had been canceled due to a storm. Noah was panicking, unsure of what to do, and asked for my help. I didn't know how to feel, but I stayed by his side. The birth process was long and complicated, but in the end, Tasha delivered a baby boy. At first, I was genuinely happy for them. But then I saw the baby. Something didn't sit right. The child had distinct features that neither Tasha nor Noah possessed, and they didn't seem like traits that could just be passed down through family genes. When I looked into his eyes, he reminded me of a baby of Asian descent. I'm trying to say this in the most respectful way I can, but something in my gut told me that this baby wasn't Noah's. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was just being paranoid. Newborns often look different. But the more time I spent around the baby, the more convinced I became. After staying with them for a few days, it became clear. This child didn't belong to my brother. I actually laughed not out of joy, but because I knew I finally had undeniable proof that Tasha was a cheater. And I could tell from Noah's face that he knew it too. He had been acting strange and disconnected, like he couldn't bring himself to bond with the baby. Then, just a few days later, Noah showed up at my place. He sat me down and finally admitted what I already knew: he didn't think the baby was his. He told me they had always used protection, and when he brought it up, Tasha claimed it failed. That night, I pulled out all the evidence I'd collected over the years and laid it out for him. The texts, the photos, the receipts, everything. Noah broke down in tears and sobbed uncontrollably. Meanwhile, Tasha kept calling over and over, desperate and overwhelmed, trying to care for the baby alone. I encouraged Noah to get a paternity test just to be sure. When the results came back, it confirmed what we already suspected: he wasn't the father. Noah confronted Tasha in front of the whole family. He didn't want to do it alone, so he called all of us to be there. The moment was explosive. Tasha had no defense. She was clearly guilty. But instead of owning up to it, she played the victim. She yelled at Noah for not trusting her, accusing him of doing a paternity test behind her back. She went into full meltdown mode, screaming, throwing things, waking and frightening the baby. It was chaos. After that, Noah moved out and stayed with Mom and Dad for a while. He even brought the baby with him because he didn't trust Tasha to care for him in such a volatile state. I could tell Noah was beginning to form a bond with the child, and so were my parents. Despite everything, they saw an innocent child caught in the middle of adult mistakes. Eventually, Noah sent Tasha the divorce papers. She resisted at first, denying everything and accusing him of faking the DNA test results. But a second test confirmed again he wasn't the father. With no more lies left to tell, Tasha shifted gears. She started making bizarre excuses, claiming the baby was conceived via IVF and that they had used a sperm donor. But she couldn't back up her story. The court granted the divorce on the grounds of infidelity. Legally, Noah had no claim to the child, so custody was awarded to Tasha. She also tried to demand child support and spousal maintenance. But the court ruled that since the child wasn't his and she was at fault for the divorce, she wasn't entitled to either. In the end, Tasha placed all the blame on Noah because, of course she did. She kept calling and blowing up my phone, begging Noah to take her back because she had nowhere to go with the baby. My mom and dad, being the kind-hearted people they are, offered to let her stay in one of their flats for a couple of weeks, just until she could find a job and a place of her own. Personally, I didn't think she deserved their kindness, but what could I say? That's just who my parents are. I still can't wrap my head around how my brother could be so naive and foolish to marry Tasha. I know holding grudges isn't healthy, but part of me believes he brought it all on himself and, honestly, got exactly what he deserved. My ex-girlfriend cheated on me with my brother. He married her even after I warned him not to. When I tried to tell him she was still cheating, he didn't believe me. When she accused me of trying to sleep with her, he believed that. Still stings. I've seriously considered cutting him out of my life. The only reason I stayed in touch with him was because I was driven by this burning need to prove him wrong, to show him that she was a liar, a cheater, and that I'd been right all along. Now that the truth is out, I feel oddly fulfilled, like my mission is complete. There's a deep satisfaction in knowing I was right, and sometimes I even find it funny. A dark part of me wants to bring it up again and again just to see the regret in his face. Maybe that makes me a jerk, but if I am, he's no better. I'm still torn between cutting ties for good or just keeping my distance and moving on quietly. Hey again, back to continue the story about my brother and his cheating wife, who also happened to be my ex. Wild, right? That's crazier. Is that she got pregnant while cheating, and after the divorce, she had nowhere to go. My parents, being the saints they are, gave her one of their rental flats to live in rent-free until she could get back on her feet. The only reason they showed her any sympathy was because of the baby. They didn't want to see a child left homeless, even if the mother was undeserving. I knew the truth, though. She hadn't found pity with my parents, she would have probably slept her way into someone else's home. But my parents, it's too generous for their own good. After the divorce, her lawyer advised her to track down the real father so he could be forced to pay child support. She didn't even know who it was. In the meantime, she felt entitled enough to dump the baby at my parents' house every morning, claiming she was out job hunting. She'd leave in the early morning and sometimes wouldn't return until late at night, or not at all. Some nights, she didn't even bother coming home to pick up her baby. My mom had unknowingly become a full-time nanny. Oh, my dad wasn't having it. He eventually told her to stop dropping off the baby without notice. Tasha lost it. She threw a full-blown tantrum, calling my parents selfish and cold-hearted. She accused them of being cruel for not helping a struggling mother, claimed no one was hiring her, and cried about how everyone was against her. My mom caved again and kept caring for the baby, but my dad was furious. Noah wanted nothing to do with any of it. As for me, I just wanted her out of our lives for good. She was draining my parents, emotionally and physically. I decided to step in and help her find a job, but what I discovered was unbelievable. Instead of job hunting, she was lounging at home all day with her new boyfriend who had already moved in. He was covering her expenses and working from home. The only thing he asked in return, peace and quiet, meaning he didn't want the baby around. That's why Tasha kept dropping the baby off at my parents' house. The moment I uncovered this, I told my parents everything. They immediately cut off babysitting and gave her a 1-week notice to vacate the flat, as expected. The boyfriend wasn't interested in sticking around once she asked him to help her find a new place. He dumped her on the spot and vanished. Tasha ended up moving into her friend C's house 32. Female. Since I'd already wasted time helping her job search, I had found a cleaner position at a local daycare. I specifically chose that one because the daycare offered childcare during work hours. Tasha, desperate and with no other options, took the job. I won't lie, the sight of her as a daycare cleaner was oddly satisfying. It's kind of poetic. Really? She'd thought she could lie, cheat, and manipulate her way through life, even get pregnant by another man and fool everyone. But in the end, everything fell apart and she had to clean up her own mess. Literally, honestly. I still have mixed feelings about her. Part of me thinks she deserves the worst, but I can't help but feel a bit sorry for the baby and even for her now that she's a single mom. Deep down, I hope she changes and raises her child with care. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for following along and for all your supportive comments. After reading them, I decided not to completely cut ties with my brother. But our relationship will never be the same, not after Tasha. She completely shattered the bond we once had. Since the divorce, he's distanced himself from the whole family. Now I find myself stuck, not knowing whether I should reach out or just let him be. I'd appreciate any advice from you all in the comments. Here's another update to my earlier post about my brother's ex who, yes, is also my ex. I can't thank you enough for the support and guidance. Honestly, I had no one to talk to about any of this. And your comments really helped me process everything. I ended up reaching out to my brother, and thank God I did. He admitted he felt deeply ashamed for not believing me, and the divorce had taken a huge emotional toll on him. I'm relieved I didn't cut him off completely. It took everything in me to make that move because I was still bitter about everything he did. There's a difference between trusting your partner and blindly siding with them while turning your back on your own family. In many ways, I feel like I had to become the older brother in this situation. Eventually, we had a serious talk about all the anger and resentment I had bottled up, especially about him being the guy my girlfriend cheated with. He broke every bro code imaginable, but he apologized. He said he'd learned the hard way not to trust someone like Tasha again. He also apologized for mocking me about being single, which I had honestly forgotten about until that moment. The truth is, he'd been kind of a jerk to me for years, ever since we were kids, but marrying Tasha took it to a whole new level. As for Tasha, well, things didn't go as smoothly for her as she expected. She wasn't good at her cleaning job at all. In typical fashion, she ended up sleeping with the daycare manager, 47. Malin got promoted to a helper position, but she had no clue how to care for kids. She couldn't even properly look after her own child. Staff began filing complaints about her behavior toward the children, but the manager turned a blind eye because of their relationship. It wasn't until complaints came in from the parents that the daycare finally had to fire her. She begged to stay, but she was damaging their reputation. After getting let go, the manager also dumped her. Now she was jobless and desperate again. After a long search, Tasha finally discovered the biological father of the child. His name was Kyle, 39, of Asian descent, a wealthy middle-aged man, who, just like Tasha, was a cheater. He was already married to a woman named Rita, 37, who must have been devastated when she found out her husband had cheated and fathered a child. But Tasha, as bold as ever, showed up unannounced at their house. Kyle denied everything at first. He wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. So Tasha called the police and pursued legal action. The court ordered a paternity test, which confirmed that Kyle was the father. Rita, who couldn't have children of her own, decided they should fight for custody of the baby. They went to court, but Kyle wasn't actually interested in raising the child. He was just trying to save face. They ended up losing the case. Tasha, on the other hand, only wanted custody so she could claim child support, and it worked. The court ordered Kyle to pay her a large sum monthly. With that money, Tasha enrolled the baby in full-day daycare and went right back to doing what she does best, finding a new guy to fund her lifestyle. She turned out to be even worse than I imagined. The truth is, she's not going to stay young and pretty forever. She needs to build a real career before she ends up completely alone and dependent. No decent man is going to marry her after everything she's done. She jumps from one man to another purely for personal gain, and one day, it's going to blow up in her face. I feel awful for the child caught in the middle of all this. I really do hope Tasha changes, if not for herself, then at least for her kid. Right now, things might look easy for her, but I have no doubt that rough days are ahead. My brother and I just sit back and hear updates through the grapevine. Our town, gossip spreads like wildfire. Tasha's reputation is ruined. No respectable man would even consider being with her, now not, with her history of gold digging and manipulation. She's surrounded by the wrong crowd, and I just pray that her lifestyle doesn't affect that poor child. Hello again, everyone. Surprisingly, I have more updates about Tasha, her cheating, gold digging, and freeloading ways. As I predicted in my earlier posts, she didn't end up in good company. Some of the men she got involved with were outright criminals with strong connections to drug dealing. Now, let me be clear, I respect women who choose to live freely and embrace their sexuality. But Tasha's situation is different. The men she surrounds herself with are dangerous. Right now, she's living with one of them, and not long ago, she overdosed while using drugs with him. I won't get into the details of what substances she took, but it's horrifying to know that she had no help for almost 20 hours. While her baby was completely neglected, her child, barely old enough to understand anything, somehow managed to open the front door and wandered out onto the streets. He was nearly hit by a car before some neighbors spotted him and took him back home, only to find Tasha unconscious. Authorities were immediately called. She was rushed to the hospital and later sent to rehab. Meanwhile, Child Protective Services took custody of the little boy. Tests revealed the baby had been exposed to heavy levels of drugs and secondhand smoke, damaging his young lungs. Noah felt awful for the child. He reached out and was allowed a visit. Eventually, Kyle, the baby's biological father, as mentioned in my previous posts, was contacted and awarded custody after assessments confirmed he and his wife could care for the child. My mom had grown very attached to the baby. She was deeply worried throughout the ordeal. Thankfully, the child ended up in the care of Rita, Kyle's wife, a schoolteacher who genuinely loves children. She accepted the child as her own and has been caring for him ever since. But here's where things took a surprising turn. Rita filed for divorce from Kyle. She had all the proof she needed. Her husband had cheated and fathered a child with another woman. With that evidence, she was granted a massive alimony settlement. Thank God she left him. She didn't deserve to be with someone who betrayed her trust. What touched me most was that Rita kept the child. She legally adopted him and is now raising him as a single mother. She's doing a great job, and I couldn't be happier knowing the kid finally has stability. She even lets my mom visit from time to time, knowing how much she cares about the child. My mom never reached out to Tasha. She wanted no more of her drama. As for Tasha, the overdose put her in the hospital for a couple of weeks. The doctors said she could have died if she had taken just a little more, or if no one had found her in time. The child was severely neglected, malnourished, and filthy, with a heavily soiled diaper. He was hungry and had been crying non-stop. If he hadn't opened that door, both of them might not have survived. Tasha spent 6 months in rehab and was hit with a hefty fine. She was warned that if she didn't comply, she'd face jail time. My brother visited her once out of pity. He assumed she'd be devastated over losing custody of her child. But she wasn't. She was only upset about not receiving child support from Kyle anymore. In fact, she was relieved she no longer had to care for the baby. Once she got out of Rehab. She went straight to Rita's house only to find out that Rita had divorced Kyle and legally adopted the child. Still, Tasha had the audacity to demand money from Rita, threatening to take the baby away if she didn't pay up. What she didn't realize was that she no longer had any legal rights. Rita called the police immediately and filed a restraining order against her. Tasha was warned that any attempt to contact the child again would result in jail time because she had already endangered the child's life. I keep reflecting on everything that's happened. Tasha could have had a decent life with Noah if she had just been faithful. He did his best to give her love and attention, but it was never enough for her. I truly believe she craved attention from multiple men. Her need for constant validation cost her everything. In the end, she destroyed not only her own life, but she also hurt Noah and deeply affected the child. All of it could have been avoided if she had just been honest or, at the very least, careful. But maybe this is karma catching up with her. Still, I'm grateful that Noah eventually saw the truth. Rita got to become a mother, the child found a loving home, and Tasha. She finally faced the consequences of her actions. Asterisk.